I'm relieved to say we won't be heading out to sea today. It's blowing a gale up on the top deck. But from the safety of the dockside, I'm joined by 4 of the candidates hoping to be the new MP for Great Grimsby. And there will be a new MP in this part of North East Lincolnshire, because the man who represented Grimsby in Parliament for almost 40 years, Austin Mitchell, has now stepped down. Len Tingle there with that profile of Great Grimsby. We are live on board the trawler Ross Tiger today. Let me come first to Melanie On, the Labour candidate. Now, Austin Mitchell said a few weeks ago that your party could put up an alcoholic sex paedophile here in Grimsby and still win. Are you a shoo-in?
Absolutely not. We're fighting for every single vote. But I would like to talk about some of the things that were on that vox pop. Clearly, the Tories have failed Britain and they're failing Grimsby. We have got unemployment running at about 10% here, which is pretty much the highest in the region. 25% of our young people here are not in education, employment or training. And I've been hearing stories from the doorstep where people are waiting 3 and 4 weeks just to get in to see their GP, and it's not acceptable.
Mark Jones, you're the Conservative Party's candidate here. The last Conservative to win in Great Grimsby was back in 1924. Do you accept the odds are stacked against you here?
Well, it's about time we had some positive change in Grimsby, and that's what we need. We hear that there are problems ingrained in Grimsby, and yes, there's some challenges, but that's after 70 years of a Labour MP, a Labour council here, and indeed 13 years of a Labour government in recent times. So we need change, but it must be positive, and that's what I'm about.
Victoria Ayling, you're the UKIP candidate here. You were the Conservative Party candidate last time round. Now, let me deal first with a story that's in today's national newspapers. It is claimed, according to the Mail on Sunday, that you told UKIP activists in Grimsby your son was blown up in Afghanistan when that was not the case. Do you want to clarify the situation?
That is an absolute slur about a private family matter and a distortion of the truth, and lawyers are dealing with it. And this is indicative of the viciousness of the establishment press, who are frightened of a breakthrough by UKIP. So I do not want to discuss this any further on air.
But was your son blown up in Afghanistan?
I am not discussing the matter. It is a private family matter and is being dealt with lawyers. Why are you asking these guys about policy in Grimsby and me about personal matters, which I will not
Victoria,
discuss?
I wanted to get it out of the way.
No.
To be fair to the other candidates, they've not featured in the
speak.
national newspapers today, unlike you.
Well, I am not discussing it further because it's a private matter and lawyers are dealing with it. It was lies and distortion, and not from me, but from the media.
We'll come to some of the issues in a moment.
Is it that the EU funds you and BBC so much that you don't want to use it?
Today's story was in the Mail on Sunday.
Why?
One of the most anti-EU papers going.
Excuse me, it's a private family matter, and you have no right to discuss it on air as lawyers are now involved. Is it because you do not like UKIP, because the BBC get big funds from the EU? Stop trying to drag my family matters into the domain and spreading more lies.
The BBC is funded by licence payers. We'll come to the issues in a moment, but you've made your feelings clear. Steve Besant, you're the Liberal Democrat candidate in Grimsby. Are there many Lib Dems left in this area?
Yes, I'm in with a chance. I've got a proven track record. People are voting me because they believe what I'm saying. And I'm a hard-working councillor. I've been a hard-working councillor throughout all my time since 2003, and they're switching to me both from UKIP and Labour.
Well, let's just sum up what you believe are the important issues for voters here, if you can sum them up. Melanie On for Labour.
I absolutely think that jobs is a critical issue. We've got a proliferation of zero-hours contracts. There are minimum wage jobs. The VT was talking about 1,000 people applying for 30 jobs at the Holiday Inn. Some of those were those kind of jobs, and Labour has got real solutions. So making sure that people on exploitative zero-hour contracts are actually offered the opportunity for a permanent one, and also increasing the minimum wage to £8 by 2020.
Mark Jones, what are people saying to you on the doorstep?
Well, I'd have to agree with Melody for once that skills and jobs, that is the #1 priority. What I would say is, though, in the last 5 years, we've seen over £200 million worth of investment locally from the Conservative-led government. If the answer was Labour, these problems would have been solved before now. We need positive change and we need action to deliver the jobs. 40% down in the last 5 years have been the unemployment figures locally.
So, Victoria Ayling, what is the most important issue for you?
Jobs. It is about time that Great Grimsby had a change. Years of politicians destroyed the fishing industry with the Icelandic deal and the European Union Common Fisheries Policy, and they're continuing to destroy Great Grimsby's chances with no infrastructure, no proper infrastructure, lots of claims, lots of spin, but no do. 70 years of a Labour MP, and they've got a candidate who thinks they may be better than Austin Mitchell. This is not going to happen. We need a change, and only UKIP can deliver a positive change.
Steve Bazant.
It is about jobs. I was talking to two former fishermen yesterday out on the doorstep, and they was talking about, is it about Europe? And I said, no, it's back to the 1960s, the decline of the fishing industry. They agreed with me. They said the Labour government got a poor deal at that particular time. But we need to make sure that education is right. We need to make sure we've got the National Training College in our area for wind technology. And that is very crucial. And if I was elected as MP, I'd make sure that that investment comes to our area.
All right, let's find out what some... Well, let's go straight to Labour Party's candidate Melanie On. Victoria Ayling said a bit earlier that Labour had had an MP here for 70 years and you've let the town down. Why should voters trust you again?
Well, I think people are telling me under the last Labour government that they felt much more secure in their jobs, that they had better pay and conditions at work, and they weren't struggling the way that they are now. And people too often are having to rely on payday loans that are now littering our high street, and I don't think that that's good enough.
Mark Jones, if the Conservatives win the election, you're pledging a referendum in 2017. Won't the next 2 years be dominated by talk about the EU? And won't that put many companies off investing in Grimsby into the green energy industry?
What I would say is the next 2 years will be dominated by creating the jobs and the skills that people need to actually improve their lives. We need a referendum. People are saying whether they vote in or out, they want the choice, and that's what's important. And they'll only get that referendum if they vote Conservative. It's certainly not going to be a UKIP government, so that, you know, that will not feature. You need a Conservative government to get it.
Victoria Ayling, UKIP have got a poster up in the town talking about the demise of the fishing industry here. But I mean, are you seriously suggesting we're going to go back to 30, 40 years ago when there were 400 fishing trawlers in this port?
Norway is outside the European Union. They control their own waters and have tens of thousands involved in the catching side of the industry. We deserve the chance to try and get control of our waters back. At the moment we don't. We can start getting some of it back, but we need to leave the European Union. And I may add, the only thing that will count with a referendum, if a referendum was done now, not put it off 2 years as a fudge to try and grab votes for the election. You can get a UKIP MP in Great Grimsby. We will have enough MPs to hopefully hold the balance of power to push through a straightforward in or out referendum before Christmas. This is all talk and spin and no do. We can get our fishing industry back, but only if we leave the European Union, and that is the only way around the issue, as well as getting more jobs for Grimsby so we can stop all these restrictions and get back on the world stage. We get our seat back on the World Trade Organisation and deal with the rest of the world as an independent nation.
Let me just bring in Steve Bazant and I'll come back to you, Melanie On. Steve Bazant, is it time to leave the EU?
It's definitely not. It's causing devastation out there as we speak. Siemens have said if we pull out of Europe, it will cause literally devastation to our town. If you just look out there, over to the waters, we've got the world's biggest wind farm being built. And we're the gateway of Europe, literally the gateway of Europe. If we had this vessel running now, we could be to any European country in a few hours' time. And we will not get our fishing waters back if we pull out of Europe. We're a small island. If we had imposed a 50-mile limit, we'd be touching France, we would be. So we cannot do that. The only way is sensible reform. Sustainable fishing is with smaller boats.
Right, OK. Melanie On, is Ed Miliband wrong not to promise the British people a referendum on whether we stay in the EU?
Can I just come back? I mean, if UKIP are so committed to people, you know, bringing back a fishing industry in this country, Nigel Farage has sat on the Fisheries Committee in the EU for 3 years, 42 meetings. He attended one. That was the committee that was actually making the decisions around the future of the British fishing industry. So I really think that they're, you know, They're trying to appeal to a nostalgia that doesn't exist in the same way anymore. We've still got a thriving fishing industry, but it's in a different capacity. We've got a market that is doing £400,000 worth of business every single day, and that's something that we have to cherish and welcome.
So, Victoria, are you running a policy on nostalgia?
Can I talk to you about Nigel Farage?
Go on, then.
He is extremely keen on getting our fisheries back.
And why didn't you attend any meetings?
The meetings, he always puts a substitute there for votes and takes notes. The reason he's there is to observe the stitch-up by the Commons Fisheries policy of our waters being carved up with Ukraine, Austria and others.
But if you don't engage, then you can't make positive changes if you don't engage,
Mr Farage does engage, and Mr Farage is fully informed.
Well, you
and
just
Mr.
said that he doesn't
Farage,
engage, that he sends a substitute. That's
you
not
are
engaging.
resorting to personal slurs here,
It's
when
not
in
a
fact
slur,
you lack
it's a
the
political
policy.
record.
The actual reality is, by being in the European Union, we are destroying industry, and our fishing industry in particular. It is disgraceful that tens of thousands are actually employed in Norway outside the EU when we have a handful employed here in the catching site.
Let's look at some real issues. I mean, if we need to wheel out Neil Hamilton as the face of progressive politics, we've got an issue here in Grimsby. So I don't really buy that. The fact that UKIP locally, Victoria being that spokesperson, is saying that renewables industry needs to effectively be scrapped, writing off thousands of future jobs.
I never said that.
These are the things that you're saying, Victoria, and that will write off thousands of jobs. People that are halfway through 6-year apprenticeships, proper futures, are being told you're wasting your time.
I
It's
never
not good
said
enough.
that. This is slurs. I need to come back on that. That is an absolute
Are you not in
untruth.
favour of the green energy industry?
I'm in favour of jobs for Great Grimsby, but long-term, sustainable jobs. And I can tell you this now, we do not want Great Grimsby to become another Ravenscraig, like happened in Scotland. Loads of subsidies for the steel industry. Within a few years, it was gone. We need long-term, sustainable jobs
So you'd
and
scrap renewables.
sustainable
reality,
industries.
isn't there? Because these are careers, 25, 30-year careers. These are really high-skilled jobs, and they're
It is
well-paid jobs,
spin.
and our young people
This is
are
utter
looking
spin.
forward to getting involved in that industry. We've got the catch facility, we've got the renewables centre down at the college, so people are already working towards that. And if we turn our backs on it, then we're going to lose it.
Steve Besant from Liberal Democrats.
Said that Nigel Farage sits down and observes. I will not be an observing MP. I will be an active MP. I'll play my part and I'll speak up for Grimsby.
Mr Farage is a passionate advocate for the fishing industry.
Let me finish. Nigel Farage is not representing the people of the UK. I will represent the people of Great Grimsby. I will be an active MP, and I'll make sure the voice of the Grimsby is heard in the Westminster.
I'm sorry, this is just absolute slurs on Mr Farage, who is the only leader who will stand up for this country and deliver the goods to get our country back. All the others are pro-European, in a cosy club, terrified of a breakthrough.
But Victoria said he sits back and observes.
He does not. I said he actually notes, and he actually takes note of the point, and he defends our interests.
Why not let the British people have a say, Melanie, on about whether they want to be in the EU or out?
The EU has never been a problem for the Labour Party. It's a problem for the Conservatives. And, you know, let's face it, UKIP are a party made up of disgruntled Conservatives, like Victoria.
And Labour.
You know, we don't have an issue with Europe. We think that there is a future within Europe. We don't think that Europe is perfect. Of course, no organisation, no establishment is, but we think that it's better to work within that organisation to improve it and get the best deal for towns like Grimsby. And we are, in this region, a net benefactor of being part of Europe.
Is Europe a Tory obsession, Mark Jones?
The problem is, it's not a case of state knows best, we're not giving you a choice. Whether we stay in or not, we need to give the people a choice. We've not had that choice. We've not had that option. We need to go to the people, have a proper pros and cons debate about Europe.
But
and at the end of that, what we don't have is a Labour knows best, state-down decision.
They don't care whether we're in Europe or not.
It doesn't matter.
People just want to make sure that they can have a decent life, go to work, earn a decent living, and bring up their families.
And be told by the state what to think. And it's not good enough. They've got to have the choice.
It's about the real people in this town.
Hang on, this is an area of high unemployment, Victoria Ayling. There are potentially hundreds, thousands of new jobs in the offshore wind energy industry out there. Why isn't UKIP supporting those jobs?
Can I just say it's all spin? A lot of those jobs are going to EU migrants. Well, yes, you could say that. Let's face it, the aluminium that used to make the blades is smelted in India. It is shipped over to mainland Europe to make the wind turbines. They are then shipped here. We're getting the crumbs, and all this promise of jobs, where are they coming from? And aren't they going to be recruiting Baltic state workers only? There are adverts out there for offshore wind farms.
So where are those new jobs going to come from here?
Well, you tell me. It's all
you tell me, you're the candidate.
Yes, I'll tell you exactly what's happened. These EU subsidies are being ploughed in, and that's why Siemens are so scared. But places like Airbus, which are sustainable industries in this country, said if we left the EU, we'd still stay here. And that is the truth. It is spin. All those who've got money in their pockets from the EU subsidies are desperate for UKIP not to make a break.
I'm going to hear from now some of the other candidates standing here in the Great Grimsby constituency. We'll hear independent candidate Gary Calder there. So what is your pledge to Great Grimsby, and why do you want to be this town's MP? Victoria Ayling for UKIP.
Because I believe that Great Grimsby has had a raw deal from the excessive politicians from the established parties destroying their industry. This is time for a change, a good change, and in Great Grimsby the people realise that UKIP will promote them and this country first. YouGov polls put UKIP ahead of Labour, and the Tory vote is collapsing. Only by voting UKIP will you get the change in Grimsby, and the people be put first with proper infrastructure, sustainable manufacturing jobs, and putting them first.
Mark Jones, Conservative.
Well, I'm born in the East Marsh, so I was born a local lad.